Hey there guys, welcome to the 2.3 notes multi-step equations with variables on one side. So previously you have already covered notes that have one-step equations or two-step equations where they're relatively short. In this case we're going to have more complex problems, and so as you can see, it's nice to have steps to keep in mind. That way when you have longer problems, you know exactly what to hit. Now we're going to begin by filling this out. So to solve multi-step equations, we have to complete the following steps. Step 1. We need to distribute. Remember, distribution we saw in combining like terms days when we have parentheses, and if there's a number in front of that parentheses, I can multiply it to each term inside that parentheses. So distribution is just a fancy type of multiplication. Now, step 2, if needed, we may need to combine like terms. So that was 2.1 notes where we may have a 2x and a 3x and they can combine to be a 5x, or a constant that's a 7 and a constant 2, or 7 plus 2 is 9. So those can combine. Then we get into step 3. Step 3 is very important. We need to get variables on one side of your equal sign. So if I have x on the left or x on the right, I needed to get it all on the left side. Step 4 is to get constants on the other side of the equal sign. And remember, constants are numbers without variables, so they're the regular numbers you're used to seeing. A regular 7, not a 7x, a 7, a 2, a 10, a negative 2, a negative 3. And then our final step is to solve for the variable. Usually through multiplication or division, but not always. So, we have our first example, equation with distribution. So in this case, we see step 1 tells us to distribute. Now we won't always distribute. All these steps may not all be used because sometimes we may not have to distribute. But in this case, we do. So I'm going to draw my arrows to remind myself, hey, this 4 has to get multiplied to the 2x as well as to the negative 1. So 4 times 2x is 8x. There we go. And then 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And remember, we got 8x because we can multiply the 4 times the 2 to get the 8. The x will stay the same. So that's step 1. Step 2, combine like terms. Now we combine like terms if they are on the same side of the equal sign. Well, this is an 8x, so this is a coefficient 8, and this is a negative 4. That is a constant negative 4. They are not like terms. Therefore, they cannot combine. So we do not use step 2. Step 3, get variables on one side of the equal sign. Well, I only have one variable, just the x, and it's already on one side of the equal sign. So I can also skip step 3. Step 4, get constants on the other side of the equal sign. So I want all my constants on one side of my equal sign. Well, I have a constant 20, but I also have a constant negative 4. Remember, constants are numbers without variables. So I need to get this negative 4 over here. Now I don't just move it over. Remember, if we're moving from one side of the equal sign to the other, we have to use inverse operations. That is the opposite operation of what is being presented. In this case, we see a minus 4. The opposite of subtracting 4 is adding 4. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other side, because we have to keep that balance equal. So I will use a inverse operation of plus 4 to cancel out my minus 4, but I must also do that to the other side of the equal sign. This will leave me with 8x equals 24, because 20 plus 4 is 24. Step 5 says solve for the variable. Well, I need to get this variable by itself. And usually, like I said, we solve by dividing or multiplying. In this case, remember 8x means 8 times x. So the opposite operation of multiplying is division. So I'm going to divide each side by 8. And we end up with x equals 3. Once you have x equals a number, not 2x equals a number, just x equals a number, you know you are done. So we are done with the first example. So let's move on to the next one. The next one says combining like terms. So in this case, if we look at it and we go to step 1, distribute, well, there are no parentheses. So I cannot distribute. So I'm going to skip step 1. But for step 2, it says combine like terms. Well, hint, it tells us the equation is combining like terms. I do have to combine like terms. On the same side, I see that I have a variable right here, negative 8m, and another variable here, negative m. Now remember, when a variable is by itself, it has an implied 1 in front of it, so it's really a negative 1m. Those can combine. We consider these like terms. So these I'm going to combine. Now we're not going to do plus 8m plus 8m. Since they're on the same side, you just combine them, join them together. So I can bring down my 10, I can bring down my 1. Negative 8m minus 1m is the same thing as negative 8 minus 1, except equal to m. So negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9, because our 8 gets 1 more negative, or 1 more to the left. I said there's m involved. So step 2 completed. Step 3, get variables on one side. Well, I only have one variable, and it's already on its own side. Get constants on the other side. Now you may say, oh, I need to move this line. Do not move this line. This is a coefficient 9, in fact, negative 9. The constant you want to move is the 1, the number without a variable. Now you may say, well, why don't I move the 10? Well, we want to get it all on one side. This m is claiming, hey, this right side is my variable side. I am not moving. So anything else, this 1 has to move. He's getting kicked out. Since that's a positive 1, ergo plus 1, the inverse operation would be subtracting 1 from both sides. Henceforth, you are left with 9 equals negative 9m. Now, some of you may look at this and say, oh, that's intuitive. I know what m has to be, so that when it's multiplied to negative 9, it gives us 9, but we're just going to finish it off. Now, as we stated before, negative 9m, when we have a coefficient touching a variable, then they are being multiplied. And the inverse operation of multiplying is dividing. So we are going to divide both sides, not just by 9, but by negative 9. Because my coefficient isn't 9, my coefficient is negative 9. So 9 divided by negative 9 is 1. Sorry, you're going to hear my dogs in the background. So we continue with 2 more examples. Mixed multi-step equations of varying difficulties. So in this example, we still want to follow our 5 steps. We always want to distribute first, if possible. In our example, there are parentheses, so we can't distribute, so we should distribute. So I'm going to start with distribution. 2 times x is just 2x. 2 times positive 5 is positive 10. And then I bring the plus 3 down, as well as my equal 20. Step 2 told me to combine like terms, if possible. In this case, okay, I look on the left, are there any terms I can combine? Yes, I have a 2x and a 3x. They're like terms, because they both have a variable. I cannot combine them with the 10. The 10 is a constant. It is not a variable, it is not a coefficient. So it will stay on its own. So the 2x plus 3x is 5x. So I'll just write it in pink so you can kind of understand what happened there. Now remember, if they're on the same side, you do not cancel out. You do not do inverse operations. You just combine. That's why it's called combining like terms. Now I can go on step 3, get variables on one side with my variables already on the left side. And in this case, my variable has claimed side left. The left side, it says, hey, I have the left side. So it's kicking out that plus 10 and saying, hey, is my side, so you need to go. Well, for him to go, we have to use inverse operations. So the opposite of adding 10 is subtracting 10. The color coding kind of went away, but that's fine. Which leaves us with 5x equals 20 minus 10 is 10. Now we've solved for our variable, same thing as before. We're going to divide by 5 on both sides. So x equals 2, because 10 divided by 5 is 2. Alright, another example. We have negative a plus 4 times the quantity of negative 6a plus 7 is equal to 228. Step 1, distribute. Yeah, I can distribute. I see it that I have parentheses right here, so I'll start there. Now, the negative a is going to get brought down because it's not part of my distribution. It's not going to change. Be careful. A lot of times, sometimes students think, oh, I also distribute the a. If it's not directly touching that parentheses, they'll say the same. Plus, actually, be careful there. This is a positive 4 times a negative 6a. We know that negative times positive is negative. So I kind of got ahead of myself by writing plus. It's actually going to be minus. Because 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. And we don't want to write double signs. We don't want to write plus negative 24. So I'll just write minus 24a. 4 times 7 is going to give you 28. Equals to 28. Step 2 is combine like terms. Be careful. A lot of times students want to start counting things out. They get excited. Do not do that. We're going to follow our steps. We're going to say, hey, I have a negative a and a negative 24a. Those are like terms. I can combine these. Keeping in mind that negative a is really negative 1a. Therefore, that's going to give me negative 25a. Plus 28 is 228. There we go. And then same steps as before, we have to get variables on one side. It's already on its own side. In fact, it's claiming side left, or the left side. So it's kicking out that plus 28. So it's saying, hey, use your inverse operation to get out of here. Well, the inverse operation of adding 28 is subtracting 28. So that's going to leave us, we're going to add a space. Okay. Negative 25a equals 200. Finally, same as before, we're going to divide by the coefficient. And the coefficient was negative, so we are going to divide by a negative number. So, positive divided by negative is negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and in fact, it is going to be a negative 8. Now, these are some really, really important rules. If like terms are on the same side, I will combine like terms. That's what I did in the pink. So if they're on the same side of the equal sign, like our 2x and our 3x, negative 1a to negative 4, if they're on the same side of the equal sign, combine like terms. Conversely, if they are on opposite sides, you will use inverse operations. So that's what I did in the blue. The plus 4. Notice this is a constant because it doesn't have a variable. This is a constant. So they're opposite sides, so that's where I do inverse operations. So know when to use inverse operations versus combining like terms. Now these 3 problems are supposed to check to see how you're at. So I would pause the video here, try them on your own, and then come back to check. Can you get these right? It'll let you know if you're ready to move on to the practice. So assuming that you did pause the video, I'm going to go on to solve them. Example 1, you cannot distribute. There are no parentheses to allow you to distribute, which is fine. Skip step 1. However, we can combine like terms because I see a positive 3x and a negative 4x. So, bring down everything else. Negative 1 equals 5. 3x minus 4x is negative 1x because 3 minus 4 is 1. And then same thing as before, you have to get variables on one side. There's one variable, and this variable is claiming the right side. So kicking out that 5, it's saying, hey, go to the left. Well, for it to go to the left, it says, hey, use your inverse operation. It's going to leave us negative 6 equals negative 1x. That's not your answer. X is not by itself. It's still be multiplied by negative 1. So, still divide by the coefficient of x. Be careful, a lot of students will try to divide by negative 6 here. So make sure you're always dividing by the coefficient, or the number touching x. And then 6 divided by 1 is 6, negative by negative is positive, so that leaves you with a positive 6. For the next problem, notice now we do have parentheses, so we can distribute here. So we're going to distribute, and that is going to give you 100 equals 5 times 2, which is 10, times 5 times 3, which is 15, keep the x. So 5 times 2 gave us this 10, 5 times 3x gave us this 15x. Variables claiming the right side, so it's picking up at 10. So we have to use inverse operation. Oops. Gives you 90 equals 15x. Divide by 15, divide by 15. If you do not know what 90 divided by 15 is, because you don't have your 15s memorized, you might have to do long division, or kind of guess and check what's 15 times 4, what's 15 times 6. And you should come out with x equals 6, because 15 times 6 is 90. Or 15 goes into 90 6 times. One more final example. You'll have to distribute here. So there are parentheses. I'm going to start with the negative 2 times 6x, which is negative 12x. And negative 2 times negative 6. Be careful here. Negative 2, negative 6 is going to give us a positive 12. Bring down the 7, bring down the 115. Step 2, combine like terms, if possible. So we are going to go here. Oops, those aren't my like terms. It's the 12 and the 7. The constants combine this time. So in this case, that is going to give us 19. So we have negative 12x plus 19 equals 115. Variables claiming, the left side, so we are going to subtract 19 from both sides. And 115 minus 19 is 96. Divide by the coefficient of x, which is negative 12, so we divide both sides by negative 12. And you are left with x equals negative 8, because positive divided by negative is negative. And that's it. That's your notes. So now you'll move on to your practice in your packet. If you need help in your practice, feel free to email your teacher or sign up for tutoring. Otherwise, have a nice day.